the mount of crucifixion, fountains open deep and wide, through the floodgates of God's mercy, flow the vast and gracious tide, grace and love like mighty rivers, poured incessant from above, heaven's peace and perfect justice, kiss the guilty world in love. Who is love? Who is love will not remember, who can cease to sing his praise, he can never be forgotten, throughout hands who is love will not remember, who can cease to sing his praise, he can never be forgotten, throughout heaven's eternal days. Pray that you just lavish it out on us this morning. And I pray that we'd be bold to lavish it out as we walk out and leave this building, as we love each other, talk with each other, pray over each other. And God, we just specifically, too, being that today celebrates 15 years. I don't know if celebrate's the right word, but today marks 15 years since September 11 attacks. And there's so many people that were affected by that, directly and indirectly. First of all, God, I just want to thank you for the healing and the redemption that you have brought in so many of those people's lives, Lord. I thank you that you are not held down by are telling, and parents are telling, and grandparents are telling of ways that you have just brought healing and filled them with so much love. So we just pray, too, that, as that journey's not over, pray that you continue to work good things in every single person who's been affected by that, Lord. And as a nation, we gather together to pray over them, and that we don't just do it on the day that it happened or the day after it happened, but 15 years later, we are still praying over those families, Lord. And all God's church said, amen. Let's go ahead and turn around and greet one another. Ask each other how you're doing. Give each other a handshake, hug, whatever. Perfect time for a frog in my throat.
let's roll.
Thanks for being on time. To take the month to fast and to pray and to ask God for direction for the future of our church. And we'd love for you guys to get in on this. If you didn't get a card last week when you came in, there's some out at the host table when you leave. But we're taking a day or a day each week to fast and ask God for direction for the future of our church now that we're through this pastoral transition. The end of the month, Wednesday, September 28th, we're going to have a feast night to finish off the fast. So there's sign-ups going around this morning, getting passed around. Sign up, bring something to the feast. But we'll also have an open mic that night where you can share whatever God's been saying to you. We're just looking for any of you who call this church home to pray and ask God and then share whatever He's laid on your heart, whatever impressions He's given you, how we're really doing as a church, and helping our leaders think about what might be missing and what we're excelling at and what's weak. So that's coming up at the end of the service. Our Connect class starts in a few weeks. So if you're new with us at the Vineyard and are wondering if you should make this your church home and if it's the right place for you, you'll want to get in on that. It's during the first service. You sign up online or on the app or out in the foyer, and there's breakfast during the first service for the Connect class. That runs 4 weeks in a row starting 9/25. And we've also got a men's retreat coming up at the end of the month. Some of you guys signed up for this yet? I know we've got a few guys going. I'm going. Our Vineyard, Michigan churches are getting together to do a retreat up north. There's a sign up online. I think there's info in the back. You can get on the website and register. About 150 guys going away for the week. It's just like actually about 24 hours, Friday night through Saturday night. You won't be gone the whole weekend, but a great way to connect with guys, make some friends. I've heard that some folks that are new at the church they've already signed up. So if you're an old timer here, come along for the men's retreat. It'd be a great time to meet some new guys. Small groups start up in a few weeks, so those sign-ups are out there as well. You can sign up on the app. And youth group is relaunching today for the fall. Both our high school and middle schoolers meet. It's during the second service, their Sunday morning meeting. High schoolers in the office, middle schoolers in the kitchen. And we've actually got with us today Jordan Pelfrey and Holly. They're up here from Cincinnati. Jordan is the new youth pastor that we're hiring. So some of you guys have heard that. Yeah, after, 9 months of searching, our pastoral team interviewed them in July and has spent the last couple months now getting to know them. They're going to be up here preparing to move likely in January. They'll be up here about once a month working with our teams. You'll see Jordan here. He looks a little young, right? For some of you guys, is he really a pastor? He looks kind of young. Well, the good news is he's as old as many of Jesus' disciples were. So I think the age is no factor, but he's one of the most godly, just in love with Jesus, passionate for youth sort of young people that I've met. And so our whole pastoral team, after meeting him in July, says, we think this might be God's leading, so we're going to bring him on staff and begin that journey this fall. So if you'd like to meet him, he'll be here after the services. He'll be meeting with the youth, and then there's a youth event, middle school and high school. They're going to the Treetops ropes thing up at Knapp's Corner right after the second service. So stick around for that if you're in high school or middle school. All right, well, we're going to dive back into our study of John's Gospel. If you've got your Bible, you can take it out, open it to John chapter 6. And as you do, I want to tell you a couple stories. For as long as there's been recorded history, humankind has had a fascination with living forever. Have you noticed? I mean, you look at almost any culture in the world, humankind has had a fascination with living forever. I mean, ancient Greeks were the first ones to talk about the fountain of youth. The fountain of youth, that you could live, you could find immortality in a secret fountain. Of course, you may know that Florida was discovered by Europeans who were searching for the fountain of youth, which is ironic because now it's mostly populated by elderly people, right? Now, we've been fascinated for millennia with this idea of living forever. And I read recently about there's a number of tech industry billionaires in this country who have really stepped up the search for immortality. They're spending billions of dollars to research drugs that will prolong life and defeat aging. They're saying, aging is actually just a disease, and we're going to defeat it. We're going to reverse cellular breakdown. There's currently an MIT scientist who thinks that he can completely eradicate aging within our lifetime. I mean, the co-founder of Google, the co-founder of Oracle, they've put close to $1 billion into this. They call it geroscience. And they say, we're optimistic. If you can imagine a 60-year-old with a 20-year-old's body, we think we'll be there within the next 20, 30 years. Now, on the other side of their optimism, of course, is this great fear that's always been with humanity. Ever since the beginning, this great fear of death and dying. That's on the other side of this optimism, this fear that's been with us. And despite billions that are being spent on aging, there doesn't really seem to be any promising leads on fixing the problem of death, believe it or not. There's no real solutions among scientists right now for how to beat death. Even if you live to 150, and you don't want to live to 150, right? I don't know. I wouldn't want to live to 100, but you might want to live to 150. What have we really done except push the fear of death out a few decades, right? Half a century. Now, anyone ever heard of William Somerset Maugham? A few of you guys? No? We got one or two literary types here. Somerset Maugham, he was a super celebrity about 100 years ago. Just imagine a guy with way too much money and status, way too much celebrity. Imagine like Justin Bieber if he were really intelligent and intellectual. I know that's not possible, but you go with me here. Maugham was a super celebrity. Imagine the Great Gatsby. In the 1930s, he was probably the most famous living author, a novelist, a playwright, short story writer. His play, The Constant Wife, has been staged thousands of times. There's an account of Maugham, though, that was written up in the New York Times back in the 60s or 70s by his nephew, Robin, and it was published, I think, 1978. And at that time, his nephew went to visit him in the French Riviera, where Maugham was living in this incredible $5 million estate on the seaside. And all the stars and royalty of that day would come to visit him. And here's his nephew's account of visiting with Somerset that day in the Riviera. I looked around the drawing room at the immensely valuable furniture and pictures and objects that Willie's success had enabled him to acquire. We sat there in his seaside villa where he had 11 servants, with a cook, a butler, a footman. He had anything you could want, but it no longer meant anything to him. The following afternoon, I found Willie reclining on the sofa, peering through spectacles at a Bible that had very large print. He looked horribly wizened, and his face was grim. I've been reading the Bible you gave me, and I've come across his mob has chased him. They've pursued him all the way to the other side of the lake. So we'll pick it up at verse 25. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? Jesus answered, very truly I tell you, you are looking for me, not because you saw the signs I performed, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. You're just looking for a handout, right? I can see right through your games. You're just here for the food. As long as there's food, there's a party. But Jesus says, verse 27, do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has placed his seal of approval. You're working for the wrong thing, Jesus is saying. You're chasing me for the wrong reasons. Then they asked him, what must we do? What must we do to do the works God requires? What do we do to do the works God requires? Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. You see, evidently it's possible to be following around Jesus, to be chasing Jesus, asking him for stuff, but not to truly believe in him. right? To believe that he exists and that he can do stuff for you, but not to believe in him, the one God has sent. I mean, these people, they believe he exists. I mean, enough to ask him for something. But Jesus says, you don't believe in me. Now, what's the difference? Well, I mean, you believe that I exist, right? I mean, you believe that I'm a preacher, like an adequate preacher. Don't answer that. You believe that I mean, otherwise you wouldn't be here today. You believe that I am a preacher who you would desire to hear on a Sunday morning, so you're here. But do you believe in me? Do you believe in me? Like, say it now. Pastor, we believe in you. No, don't say that. That'd be creepy. To say that you believe in someone requires like a step of risk. It requires trust. It's a step of faith. And that's why we say, do you believe in miracles? Do you believe in life after love? I mean, that's why we say, do you believe in Santa Claus? Because we're declaring a step of risk, of trust and faith and believing in something we can't see. Jesus says the work of God is to believe in the one God has sent. So verse 30, they asked him, well, what sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our ancestors ate the manna in the wilderness, as it's written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Okay, this is where they start to sound like spoiled kids. Jesus has just fed 5,000 people miraculously, 5,000 men, so more like 15 to 20 total. And basically they say, well, cool trick, Jesus, but Moses, he fed our ancestors like every day for 40 years. So nice trick, but we're not ready to believe in you. I mean, we're not ready to take a risk on you. Not the way people took a risk on Moses to follow him out into the wilderness, to put their life in his hands. They're saying, we're not ready to do that. Show us something else. Show us a sign. And we talked about this a few weeks ago, but everything that Jesus is doing in this chapter and in several of the other places in John's gospel, everything he's doing is reminding these people of Moses, of the Exodus, of the wilderness story. Of course, we said a couple of weeks ago, just like Moses, Jesus fed the people miraculously, food out in the wilderness, outside of town. And then just like Moses crossing the Red Sea, Jesus miraculously goes across the surface of the water. These people were actually expecting another Moses. The Jewish expectation, the prophets had talked about, one like Moses that would come again, another leader who would challenge the political establishment, who would lead the people to freedom. That's why they've tried to make him king back in the beginning of the chapter. They said, this guy could really deal with the Romans, the way Moses dealt with Pharaoh. I mean, and if he were the politician they've been expecting, you would think he would say, sign? I'll show you a sign. Power? I'll show you some power. But he doesn't. He says, very truly, I tell you, verse 32, it's not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven. He was just the messenger. But it's my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. Well, you can't argue with that. Right? I mean, you can't argue with that. But then Jesus gets all mysterious. It's like he begins speaking in riddles. He says, for the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. What? It's hard to even follow him there. The bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Well, sir, they say, well, then always give us this bread. And then Jesus says something that just blows their minds. Ego, emi, hatras, tes, sois. See, it sounds more mysterious when you read it in the original language, doesn't it? But he says, I am the bread of the world. Look at this whole section just woke up. Thank you, older crowd in the first service who remembers that sound. All the heads came up at once. I am. There's actually an app where you can push a button and that happens on command. I am. You see, Jesus uses this phrase over and over again in John's gospel. He says, I am the bread of life. I am the light of the world. Before Abraham was, I am. I am the true vine. It comes up 8 times in the Gospel of John, this phrase, I am. And to you or me, it doesn't sound like much, I am. But it's enough to make any Jew choke on their unleavened bread. I mean, it's the phrase I am in the Bible is actually, it's the name of God. It's you've heard the name Yahweh, right? Well, Yahweh is Hebrew for I am. And it's a little more complicated than that, but it goes all the way back to Moses. When God came to Moses in the burning bush, he says, I'm going to send you to Egypt, to Pharaoh, to say, let my people go. And you're going to do this great and awesome thing. You're going to be the liberator of my people. And Moses says, well, me? I mean, I can't do that. I mean, how could I do that? And God says, well, I will be with you. And Moses says, well, that's great, but supposing I go to the Jews and I say, God is with me. Don't worry, my fellow Jew. God is with me. You know, the God of your ancestors. Well, then they're going to say, this is in Exodus 3, they're going to say, well, what's his name? I mean, which God are you talking about? And so this is how God answers. What do I say to him, God? And for the first time in the Bible, God reveals his name. He answers like this. He says to Moses, I am who I am. Or it could be translated, I will be who I will be. Tell them I am has sent you. I am the Lord. I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob. That is my name forever, the name you shall call me from generation to generation. And the problem was that the Jews considered this name so holy, I am, that they didn't even dare speak it. They didn't speak the word Yahweh. That's why sometimes it's in all caps, Lord, in your Bible, depending on your translation. The Jews didn't dare say the name because the third commandment said, don't take the Lord's name in vain. So they considered God's name so sacred that they figure you better just not say it at all. Better not to say it at all than to take it in vain. And so only once a year would one person dare to utter the name of God. The high priest on the Day of Atonement, as he entered into the temple, into the Holy of Holies, only then would he utter the name. Leviticus 24 says, whoever blasphemes the name of the Lord will surely be put to death. And so no one said the name. And when Jesus then comes in, strolls in casually and starts throwing around this phrase in John's gospel, the name's am, as in I am. When Jesus starts, introducing himself, I am. Or his disciples say, hey, let me introduce you to mi amigo. I am. Maybe you've heard of him. I mean, people get a little nervous. I mean, people are set back in their heels. I mean, actually in chapter 18, when Jesus is arrested, it says the priest, John 18, it says the priests and the Pharisees and the officers of the law came with weapons to arrest Jesus. And they said, at night with the disciples there, where is Jesus of the Nazarene? And Jesus says, I am he. And it says in the text, they fell over backwards when he said this. Like the guards fell over backwards. And that's the point where Peter pulls a sword and then begins chopping off somebody's ear. You heard the story? I mean, even in English, though, when you start calling yourself I am, I mean, it almost sounds in English like you're wanting to pick a fight, doesn't it? I mean, I am. Who are you? Where is Jesus? I am. What do you mean? I am. It just sounds kind of like there's some bravado there, isn't there? Even in English. So Jesus says, I am the bread of life to this crowd that's chasing him. Verse 35, whoever comes to me will never go hungry. I am the bread of life. Whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. I am the bread of life. But as I told you, you've seen me and you still do not believe. You don't believe. Let's skip down to verse 41. It says, "At this the Jews there began to grumble and said, 'I am the bread that came down from heaven. I am.'" Is it not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother how can he say, "I came down from heaven"? I am. In verse 47, then Jesus, he just lays it all out. He says, "Very truly I tell you, the one who believes has eternal life. I am the bread of life." Your ancestors, yeah, they ate manna in the wilderness, and yet they died. They died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which anyone may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. Whoever eats this bread will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. So let's review. These people have they've chased Jesus around the lake. "Where'd you go, Jesus? We're hungry, Jesus. Help us, Jesus." And Jesus says, you're only following me because you're hungry. You're just chasing a meal. You're chasing bread. Try chasing something that matters. "Well, just tell us what to do then, Jesus. Just tell us. Believe in the one God sent. Believe that I have everything you need." Yeah, but Jesus, show us a sign. How will we know? How do we know that we can really trust you, that we can follow you? I mean, Moses has a lot of bread every day. You only fed us a meal. And Jesus says, "I am the bread. I am the bread. Anyone who believes in me will have eternal life." The people that ate Moses' manna, let's talk about them. They died. I am the bread. Whoever eats of me, whoever feasts on me will live forever, because I am the living bread that came down from heaven to give myself for the life of the world. I mean, Jesus just doesn't mince words in this passage. And people will say, "Well, I like Jesus. He was a good moral teacher. He was a good man. I like Jesus." But I have a couple neighbors who've given me some books, just with questions, like books like Misquoting Jesus, or a popular one, or Jesus Before the Gospels. And the claim is, Jesus never said he was God. I mean, his followers made that up. I mean, he never meant he was God. Jesus just, he had good things to say about life and morals and the poor. Jesus didn't say he was God. But you see, Jesus didn't mince words. I mean, Jesus claims here that he claims for himself the very name of the unspeakable name of God that causes hearers to fall backward. "I am the living water," he said back in chapter 4. "I am the living water. Whoever drinks of me will never thirst again. I am the bread of life. You eat this bread and you'll never die." Now, I think the metaphor, bread, it's probably a little lost on us. I am the bread. I mean, I don't know about you, but bread for us isn't really that special, is it? I mean, bread is sort of more like a holder for our meat, isn't it, in 2016? I mean, in the modern world, bread is what you wrap around your hamburger so your hands don't get greasy. Am I right? I mean, we're not that impressed by bread. I mean, especially if you're counting carbs. I mean, then bread is like public enemy number one, isn't it? I mean, it's like junk calories. So you just try to wrap lettuce around your meat, right? I mean, in the first century, though, bread was survival. I mean, there wasn't a choice. Bread was survival. During the Exodus, the bread that they called manna was literally the difference between life and death for a person. Manna was all that was keeping you from wasting away in the desert. Manna was all that was standing between you and your worst nightmares. Bread was nourishment. Bread was life. Bread was precious. And so bread was security. I mean, bread made you feel safe. Bread made you feel you're free from worry. If there's enough bread, if bread kept you from worrying about the future, bread kept you from worrying about what would happen to your kids. Bread kept you from worrying what would happen when you were old. Bread kept you from facing the great fear that has always plagued humanity, Bread kept you from death. So these people chasing Jesus, they're looking for a political savior. They're looking for somebody to fix the economy. They're looking for somebody to end their financial worries, to ensure a better life for their children. They're looking for a new Moses. And to these people who are saying, chasing Jesus, give us the bread to survive, Jesus says, I am the bread. I'm it. I'm the bread. I'm the one that comes down from God in heaven. So I'd ask you, what do you think Jesus would say to us? I'm the hot dog bun. No. No. Jesus would probably say, I think we can probably say, I am your account balance. I am your financial security. Stop working for things that depreciate. I mean, there's a reason we used to call money dough, isn't there? I am your 401k. I am your portfolio. Stop working for things that decline. I am your insurance policy. I am your bankroll. You stop working for things that cannot stop the inevitable march, the tick-tock of the clock towards your impending death. I am your security. I am the life that lasts eternally. I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Anyone who feasts upon me will have a life that cannot be taken, that cannot be destroyed, that cannot be overcome by physical death, because I am the bread that came down from heaven. Will you believe in me? It's the work of God to believe in him who he was. Will you believe it? Will you put your faith in me? Will you come to depend on me? Will you put your life in my hands? Will you follow me into the unknown? Will you come to me as the source of life in the desert? Will you come to me to find fulfillment for your most basic needs? Because it's me. I am the one sent from God. I am. You know, one of the silliest things that pastors hear from people in congregations, long-time Christians, is, Pastor, I'm just not really feeling fed. I'm not feeling fed. You know, I haven't felt fed as a Christian in a long time. I'm thinking maybe I could find a church where they really feed me. They feed me. And the problem is, though, that you were never meant to be fed forever by the church. Jesus says, I am the bread. You come to me for nourishment. And sure, at church, we try to serve you a snack every Sunday. I mean, we try to teach you to eat. We try to, especially for those that are new to Jesus, that are like little children in their faith, in their new life with Christ. Well, we grind up the food, present it real nice, and we serve it on a little spoon. Just bring it right in. You know, that's what we do for those that haven't learned to feed themselves yet. But the whole point is that you would learn to eat yourself. That you would learn not just to feast on Jesus on Sundays, but to dine on him Monday through Saturday. Really, if you're feeling like church isn't doing it for you, that's because it's not supposed to. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to teach you to fill yourself. And so today we're going to do something a little bit different. This is not a way we've ever spent a Sunday morning together. It's a little unorthodox. We're going to take a survey that some of our pastor friends, Gary Best among others, one of the old senior leaders in the Vineyard, a team of sociologists who've done incredible research out of University of North Carolina. They put together a survey, a highly scientific survey, a tested survey that's called the Journey Survey. It's a spiritual life inventory. And we're going to take this today, and if you miss it today, others can take it. You can take it online in the coming weeks, but we're to take this survey, and it's going to show us as a church how we're doing Monday through Saturday. and of feasting on Jesus. It's gonna show us some things about where maybe as a church we're not teaching well, or we're not instructing well. It's going to show us as a church where it's going to show us as individuals where there's a gap in our life between what Jesus offers and what we actually partake of. And so it may be a little challenging. I took it this week, and it was hard. I thought, man, there's still a lot that Jesus offers that I'm not saying yes to. And so we're gonna put on some music here over the next few minutes, and the survey is actually going to take you about 10 to 15 minutes. And because that's a long time to sit still, people are used to being fed with a little spoon. My wife has decided that it would be helpful to give you a gift of a little piece of chocolate. So I thought that seemed a little childish, but there is chocolate. But you can get online. If you get on the Vineyard app, if you have it already on your mobile phone, you get it, and you open it, it's going to go straight. It's the first option. It's going to go straight. You can get on the web and pull that up if you don't have the app. You get on there on your phone, vineyardnorth.com/survey. There's also some paper copies up here at the front, if that's easier for you. Although our secretary would love it if you would do it on your phone, so she doesn't have to enter those by hand. But if you can use that up here. If you get stuck on your phone, if it doesn't work or something, take one of those. You can leave them back up here when you're done. We're going to take about 10, 12, 15 minutes, and then we're going to worship, as we typically do, to close out our service. But this is an opportunity for us just to really get real. Like, what does Jesus offer, and what are we eating? What are we not? So go ahead.